Hi, welcome to the very first episode of a quality podcast. My name is Ines. I am a quality specialist and consultant with quality and support. This is my very first time trying to record a podcast, a webinar. I'm not even sure what it's supposed to be yet. It's going to live on YouTube for now. Um, I'm joined here today by Natavia, who works at Peak Travel. Natavia, I'm so thankful that you are willing to be my very first guest and try this out with me.
Yes, I love it. Thank you for having me.
Uh, we spoke before, and I just love your vibe. I love the way you think about quality. So I'm really excited to have you on as a first guest. Um, To start off, would you do everyone a favor and tell us who you are, what you do, who you work with, etc., how you got here?
Yeah. My name is Natavia. I am a QA specialist for the support team at Peak Travel. We normally just refer to ourselves as Peak. We are actually a software company that provides booking tools for operation or experience-based businesses. So think ski rentals, think tours, think hiking excursion. If you can book it online, we've got you.
You're there. That's cool.
Yes.
And you are a QA specialist. Just for the sake of people who land on this and have no idea what QA is, what do you do?
So when you call someone, you're calling a support team, you hear the
Right.
recording, this line will be recorded for quality assurance. I am that person. I am the person who is listening on the other end.
You're the person taking the notes, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Obviously, we both know that it takes more than that. You listen to the call, and then what happens? What do you
Yeah.
do?
So basically I'm listening to the call and I am both determining if the agent who assisted you has met our standards and also catching anything that may not be a current standard that we may need. Because, as the company grows, as our society grows, the need of support is ever changing. And so I'm
Yeah,
also here for, okay, how do we need to reapproach these things?
that's awesome. Obviously, I'm a big proponent of people doing this. Not every company has a specialist like yourself in place. How do you get to become a QA specialist?
I started on the team. I was a support representative for Peak. I did that for about a year and a half. I'm actually very new into my QA role, but they found a need for the role full time for one person. It was previously split amongst the leads, and then they found that
Right.
we needed more focus. And so the position was opened. Another individual had it before me, and then they transitioned over, and I moved in. So one of the best things is I am a specialist who comes from doing the support that I am reviewing.
Right. Yeah, I personally think that that is the ideal path because when you're working with agents and you're assessing the work that they do, at some point the who are you to tell me how to do my job kind of conversation comes up. And coming from a position where you're like, no, I've done the work. I've experienced the work. I know what I'm talking about, and now I'm going to move into a position where I can tell you whether or not you've done the work.
Yeah, and I one of the things I love is I get to be that person who's like, okay, maybe on an individual agent level, we need more improvement here, but also
Mm,
I know the hardships the agents are dealing with, the
right.
the tools they are having to work with, the amount of creativity it requires for their job. So I'm also, as a member of the management team, I'm able to be that voice. And then it's
Right.
just like, okay, if we're going to require this degree of quality, we need to provide some more tools here, and let's do that together. So I get to carry both of those roles.
Yeah, so you're not so much I'm here as a teacher and I'm going to tell you how to do your job. You're more of an advocate, right? For
Yes.
for the team rather than against them. That's amazing. I love that. I love that Peak has decided to go for a full-time QA agent rather than having the team leads take on all of that. Um, how was that before you got the job? Because the team leads were doing that. Do you feel like that was an adequate job done, or was there things lacking in?
Um, yeah, so I was here when when the first QA specialist took the role,
Right,
and I definitely felt a difference. There was an attention to detail that my team lead couldn't offer, right? People
right,
only have so much bandwidth. And so my team lead was not able to get into the nitty gritty. And then they also didn't have that larger view of the full team um,
exactly.
to determine, okay, what are these areas that we need more assistance in? Where do we need more training? So definitely getting that QA specialist role, I saw it as a team member being very beneficial. And then getting that torch passed over to me, I'm able to continue to expand on that. So we can really focus on what does quality mean?
Mm,
Peak.
that's amazing. Yeah, I love seeing that kind of transition happen. I see that with my clients. I know how much work it is, right, to do QA, and if you put all of that on your team leads, like, are you going to achieve all of the things that you want out of doing QA? Really? Not
your your stats are also skewed.
right,
So it doesn't give the full picture that you're looking for. So
right.
um, yeah, that's one of the things first thing in, I was like, hey, I don't think we're on the same page here. Let's let's
Yeah.
recalibrate.
So if you look at, because this obviously for Peak is relatively new, right? It's not
Yeah.
something that's existed for decades or even years. Um, where does that sit on your organizational chart? Like, where is that in between? Is it part of support? Is it part of marketing? Is it part of management? Where does that sit?
So actually, my position sits within support. So I am a member of the support management team, and we
Right.
actually have another QA specialist who is on our onboarding team and
Oh,
does
wow.
that for onboarding. So it's kind of per department that they have a quality uh, program. So yeah, I am just one of the many floating about amongst us.
Do you have a specific success team as well, or just support?
We do have a success team. We actually work very hand in hand with
Hmm.
them. And so one of the tasks that I do take on is just kind of double checking that the messaging from success and the messaging from support kind of align.
Got you. Do you also communicate with departments like marketing or product to kind of align? Because you mentioned aligning stuff. Um, do you align things with those departments?
Yeah, so we have various meetings where, because of my role, I am included in those
Right.
meetings and can kind of convey either just kind of general partner feelings from the interactions I'm experiencing, or just kind of being like, hey, the support standard for this is X, Y, and Z. Is this being done elsewhere in the company, or is there a gap here? And one thing about my directors, they are very good about connecting those dots and being like, department C is doing this.
Right.
Let's get online with them. Yeah.
Does the reverse happen as well, where marketing is like, well, we've created a persona. This is how we are talking to potential customers, and we like for that communication to be passed on to customer support?
Yeah, we actually also have style guides. And so it's
Nice.
regularly checked that our style guides are consistent with the peak voice.
Let's talk about let's talk about scorecards, right? Because obviously you're scoring conversations based on your style guide, your tone of voice guide, whatever it is that you use. How did you how did you construct the scorecards that you're using now? I know that you inherited the role. Did you make any changes?
Yeah, so the individual who had the role before me, they developed the scorecard based off of our key values that we feel like should be in every interaction. So that is validation, product knowledge, tone, process, and solution.
Okay.
And so then we have questions or categories that fall underneath those. Um, and so I did inherit that scorecard. Um, I was very interesting turn of events when they were developing it. I was part of the guinea pig crew.
Okay. Let's talk about that because I'm really curious. The scorecards is part of my eternal fascination when it comes to this job. So you just told me how it started. What was your feeling about it when you were the guinea pig?
Um, from an agent standpoint, I was just like, wow, we're really taking a magnifying glass to
Right.
these interactions.
Uh-huh.
And kind of able to provide feedback on, hey, like that on the surface sounds great, but in every interaction, that's not something we'll touch on. Or if I'm
Right.
doing this, where does that fall within this question? And so kind of
Okay.
being able to have those conversations, and that's one thing I've always loved about my team, is we've all been empowered to have those conversations. So having those kind of conversations, that individual was able to go and then make tweaks to get us the scorecard, which I think the questions on our scorecard, A1.
Right.
And so now that I've taken the role, something that I am doing is I'm not messing with the questions themselves, but I'm defining those questions more.
Okay.
So falls under each category. So validation, one of the questions is, did we ask clarifying questions to
That's a
ensure
good
we
one.
have a good understanding? Okay, so if the person comes out and they're like, look at this picture, if you look right here, how are we going to judge that as a good? Do they need to ask questions? Would it seem redundant? And so like we're
Right.
going into things and kind of defining more scenario kind of situations, so that way we have more of a good overall. Because at the moment we do a hybrid between, I'm doing reviews and so are some of the team leads, but I'm doing majority.
So do you have like one big scorecard? Like the 30 odd questions and then you have to score on everything, every review that you do, or is it layered?
So it's kind of one larger one. I want to say it's like 13 questions that we
Mhm.
kind of left a little more vague with more defined descriptions so that things can fall into them. We do have them split based off of the channel, because there's certain questions that you're going to ask for an email or a chat that you're not going to ask for a phone call.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, so don't need to grade your spelling on a phone call, so that's not going to
Right. But that makes sense.
something that we are uh, getting ready to roll out. I actually just completed this, was an escalation scorecard. So taking
Nice.
our normal scorecard and then saying, what's the extra mile we want our team to go when someone's escalated? And then kind of creating those parameters along with documentation on how to handle an escalation and how to
Right.
document escalation. And so making sure that we are keeping not only the scorecard to judge the interactions, but we're keeping the training and expectations clear.
Got you. So let's pivot to pivot is such a buzzword, but let's um segue. Oh God, it's not going to get any better. Um, Move on to a different topic. When it comes to testing for stuff, obviously you have metrics that you're tracking, KPIs that you're tracking. Are there specific ones that you value highly, or is it a mix of stuff, or how do you go about testing for results?
So, and that is something, as I am newer in this role, I'm developing more of a skill for.
Hmm.
But the amazing thing about our team, and also very challenging, is we don't have bad agents. Our CSAT tend to
Very,
be really
very much a first world problem to have of
good.
you.
Yeah, it's just like, our our CSAT score is always very high. I was telling a team lead today that the only way it could get higher is if everybody got a 5 every time.
Wow.
And so like at that moment, that is a metric we're keeping track of, but me personally, I'm not paying too much attention to because our team is doing great in the eyes of our partners.
Hmm.
But there are 2 other metrics that I'm paying attention to, which is present resolved in our survey. The partner gets to tell us if their issue was resolved during that interaction. And so
Hmm.
I'm looking at that resolution percentage and have goals for that. And then I'm also looking at the actual QA scores, because we have those key values that are within our QA. They are kind of graded into sections as well. So I can see which sections or which areas of the rubric we are performing better in.
Right.
And so for the time being, I'm having a goal for solution right now. And so we're doing a nice ramp up on like, let's get our solution percentage up. Um, and yeah, that's kind of where we're keeping our focus.
Makes sense.
With that, I'm able to work hand in hand with the individual who handles company training. And so together, I can make recommendations for trainings, or we can actually create trainings together.
That's, honestly, I'm so happy to be talking to you about this because the way that you describe your role is my vision of an ideal scenario within a company. I hear about so many companies that are like, oh yeah, our team leads are doing the QA, and we do 1 or 2 reviews per agent per week. And I'm like, that's not enough in order to keep that eagle eye overview. It's not enough to spot trends. It's not enough to do anything other than performance reviews. Do you do anything other than looking at the individual performance of an agent, um, in terms of, are you taking any of the business goals, any of the strategic goals, and going, you know what, we need to reduce the amount of refunds that we're getting, for example? I don't know how many of those you get, but
Yeah, so that is something, part of my reporting goes into giving insight into the other departments. For example, I do what is called a learning library, which I take
right,
our top dispositions for a quarter, and then I share examples of what those interactions are like so that the product team and the success team can kind of learn how we talk about it and also hear from the partners directly, the needs. But as far as any goals to like reduce things, not too much with our situation. These are business owners, so they're coming to us with their unique business needs. And so
right,
each interaction varies so heavily, because you become like a mini assistant for that interaction,
right,
to help
yeah.
build something within their account. So each one is so different that doesn't really work very ideal for us. But when it comes to like company initiatives, like helping partners use features in our software that increase their revenue, then we definitely do that. And I have incentives for that. And then I'm also tracking that.
So for peak, is there a concise description or definition that you could give me about what you define as a quality conversation?
Yeah. So a conversation where our partner felt heard, where they were reassured that we are in this with them,
Right?
and that they were provided the best option, best solution possible.
Yeah.
Those are kind of where we're at. We actually have 2 company values that we strive towards within the support team, which is getting better every day and
Love that.
obsessing over our partners. And so in our interactions, it is 2 parts. It is one part, I am solving your problem and helping you with this. And it is another part that I am documenting your feedback so that way we can see actionable change within the software and company.
Got it. Has there ever been, I know that this is not necessarily a QA question, but I know that you worked as a support person previous to that. Has there ever been a vendor or a partner that you spoke to where you're like, the thing that you're selling, I want that. I wanna I wanna do that.
All the time. Um, my invite list just kind of, because we do have that relationship with our partners where we're
Right,
very encouraged to show our personality and be friendly. So after you've helped a partner with an issue in their account, which will most likely make them money, like very likely to make them money, they will
right.
invite you to all sorts of places. I have been invited to do all sorts of excursions and activities all over the world, and I'm
I'm
just like,
so
if only I had
jealous.
the plane money. Like,
Oh, oh, I'm so jealous. I can just imagine someone saying, "Oh yeah, I've got a place in Bali. Just, come over here,
yep.
white
If you're ever
sands."
in Costa Rica, come do this. Like, yes, we get those all the time.
Oh my
Or
God.
sometimes you're helping them with their account and you're looking at their products and you're just like, next family vacation, check.
I used to work with an e-commerce software, which allows people to very easily set up their own web shop. And I had what you had, but the reverse, where it's like, you're selling that, that really? You're
No,
making that much money off of that thing? That just makes me sad.
no.
I'm not going to tell you about how bad it got, but yeah, you can use your imagination. Um,
No, there's so many experiences, scuba diving, a lot of our
oh,
partners, oh, like they do boat rentals, um, ski resorts, like there's all sorts of things. There,
that's something that,
one partner who does painting and like they have images of what the painting will look like once you're finished with the class. And I'm like, I want to take that class. Yes.
turn me into a master of painting, please. Yeah.
Yes.
Is there wine involved? Is the important question.
Oh, there are all, yes, we have
Yeah.
partners who like they they teach you how to like make chocolate and then like you're like drinking
What?
while making chocolate. So like all the things that you can imagine our partners are doing. And I just want to like get a list and like slowly check them off.
That's yeah, uh I wish I had the money. Let's put it that way. Yeah. Uh okay. So a couple of last questions before we close this off. One of the things that not particularly the people that I work with ask for, but the people that they work for ask for
Mm,
is return on investment. Obviously, this is something that, QA is not an obvious, this is going to bring us money kind of thing. How does that work within Peak? Is it a very defined, this is our ROI, or how does that work?
I'm gonna be 1,000% honest with you. I've never had to have that conversation. Um,
Amazing. Oh, that makes
I
me so happy.
yeah, like it is very much where I'm coming and I'm saying, hey, I'm seeing these trends. I feel like our team could be more effective if they're doing this.
Right.
Let me do it. And I get full reign to just go off and create and train and do whatever. And there isn't really a question of the value that I bring.
How does that affect you doing your job?
I I feel so free. My There are moments where I go to my director and I'm like, "Hey, do I have permission to X, Y, and Z?" And they are like, "That is fully within your wheelhouse. Do what you think
Wow.
is." And I'm like, "Okay, the world is my oyster."
So
And I think that just comes into as a company, Peak trust their employees.
mm,
they we have a very involved hiring process, and so once you make it through, they're like, we know the quality of an
we know
employee.
that you've got it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
How do you think that your work up until now, because you said November 2022?
Uh, December is when I came into the role. Yeah.
Right. What would you say has been the impact of the work that you've done so far?
I think team trust, um,
Okay.
because our QA program is newer, right?
Hmm.
Um, one of the first things I was able to do was come in and create some checks and balances because right now I am the only QA specialist for our team.
Right.
So who, not that I would do it, but if I have a grouchy day, they just have to deal with what comes from that. No. So like the first thing
Right.
that I did in my role was create more checks and balances. We have reviewer auditing on a regular basis. I'm constantly being audited by the lead and by my director.
Okay.
Um, and something I am currently working on is updating our appeal process.
Interesting. So two questions about that. One obviously is about um, how are you reviewed as a QA specialist? Who does that and how do they do that? And the second one is how do agents appeal and how do you respond to that?
Yeah. So I am reviewed through a review audit. That is actually a scorecard that I created based off of what I believe this should be the standards of every review. And it's
Hmm.
basically how are we speaking to the agent? What is our tone and our feedback? Are we highlighting positives as well as rooms for improvement?
Right.
If we say there's room for improvement, are we documenting where they can find that and not just being like a gut feeling?
Yeah.
Um, and and then are we properly documenting the results of the review? And so that's kind of what that scorecard goes through. So that was something that I designed and it got signed off on by the entire management team.
Cool.
I get a monthly audit and it rotates between the leads, and then my director audits me on a quarterly basis.
I'm really in love with the way that Pete does this. I will not lie to you. This is like my heaven. It sounds amazing. How do you feel about getting reviewed as a reviewer?
I don't,
Is this the
coming
thing?
from being on the support, yeah, like I was an agent, like it's to be expected.
Right.
I can have poor quality work as well, so let's make sure I don't.
Fair. All right. And so the second question was, how do you deal with disputes?
Yeah, so one thing with the software that we use, we actually use Stella Connect.
Hmm.
They have the option, an agent have the option when they receive the review notification, they can read the feedback and they can either give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down. If they
Okay.
give it a thumbs down, that begins an appeal. They are then able to tell us which part of the feedback they disagree with. And
Hmm.
so currently I have that set up that as soon as it comes through, it actually notifies everybody on the management team, not just myself.
Okay.
So that way there is no room for like any concerns of hiding things.
Right.
And so from there, in that review, there's a little chat box. So I chat the agent and I'm like, hey, I saw that you initiated an appeal. I've gone ahead and started the process. I'll follow back up with you with the results.
Right.
From there, we actually schedule a calibration meeting. Um,
Interesting.
so what in that calibration, I provide them with the interaction. They do not see my initial feedback, and the
Hmm.
rest of the management team reviews that interaction together without my input.
Okay.
Um, from the at this moment, our process is the highest score stands. We found that our team was experiencing a little bit of frustrations with that, so we are making adjustments where uh, the rest of the management team is reviewing it. I provide feedback specifically on what the agent disagreed with, and then I
Hmm.
have a one-on-one meeting just to talk to them about the results and flag any other feedback that the management team may have had.
That makes sense. Okay. Well, I mean, from everything that you've said, you sound super involved. I'm really impressed with the way that Peak does quality, even though you're still kind of, you're kind of new to the role and you're figuring things out and you inherited some stuff that may have not been as functional as you wanted it to be. I think the way that you think about quality and the way you think about process is really, really very interesting. If people want to find you online, where do they go?
You can find us at peakpro.com.
Peakpro.com. Okay. We
Oh,
do stuff
sorry.
you have to.
I gave you the user login. You can actually find us at peak.com.
This is how you get straight into our personal stuff. Yeah. Again, peak what?
Peak.com. So
Peak.com. All right.
peek.com.
Natavia, I want to thank you so much for joining me on my very first, whatever this is, on quality and customer support. I appreciate you a lot. And I think the way that you talk about quality is amazing. And I think that people should be paying attention to what you have to say. Um, thank you.
No problem. Thank you so much for having me. It was so fun.
Um, for now, I wish you all the luck with your new position within Peak. And we'll just leave it at that. Thank you so much. All right. This was the very first episode of a quality podcast. I'm going to sign off now because I feel super awkward after my first one, but that's cool because that's how we roll. Thank you and see you later.